is like mounting the tiger. Once you have mounted it, you can't get off. You've got to ensure that it moves from strength to strength. The bar has to continuously keep raised. And therefore, the mindset of continuous improvement is what really makes the in-sourced model work. When you talk about the hybrid model, which is some processes in-house, some processes outsourced, the real difference is made by what's the quality of the core team which manages shared services. Because you're not only managing it in-house, you should be able to manage that which is outsourced as well. And the quality of this core team then determines as to how well that entire delivery happens, even though it is not with them. And what is with them is of the same high standard of what is delivered from outside. Because the experience for the employees and the line managers, they are not differentiating whether it is provided from within or outside, and the same high standard is required. And that management and that quick ability to raise the game within as well is only done by this high quality team. And the vendor base, the quality of the vendors also determines the distinction in terms of whether they've been able to succeed. And quite often, companies which have gone hybrid are those which are bogged down by the cost consciousness. And sometimes they have not gone in for the real quality vendors. Sometimes they've gone in for vendors who don't understand the internal culture, because hybrid companies are also worried about flexibility and the internal cultural demands. And therefore, the ability to pick and choose the right vendors to support you in a hybrid model becomes even more important. When you come in from the outside, outsourced model, it's really about commitment of leadership. That becomes very important because it's about letting things go from outside your purview. It's no longer within your roof. You're actually wanting to share it with somebody else who is going to provide, and therefore an element of trust and an element of empowerment is extremely critical and important. And here, the quality of transition, the lift and shift, the as-is mapping, all of this is important. And the transition management, which really happens before the shared services gets kicked off, is most important, because you need to capture how is it that it's run in this organization, what are the things that people value, what are the things that are the pain points, and what are the things which are unwritten but are taken into account. And capturing that becomes extremely critical. And companies which have done this have actually invited the vendors to come and immerse themselves in the parent organization for a month at least, to fully grasp the ground realities, so that when they take it out into their own outsourced model, they are fully aware of the expectations, the unstated expectations, as well as the kind of cultural dimensions, the values that are critical in this organization. And the most important is the relationship that exists between the service provider and the in-house HR. And this is, it needs to work like two sides of the same coin. You no longer can be pointing fingers. Even though it's a customer-vendor relationship, it needs to work like two hands of the person. And in places where it's worked best is when they are able to sort of understand each other's pain points fully and able to represent their positions to the counter partners. The vendor person being able to talk about the HR support and the HR's position as well as HR could, and HR being able to speak about the vendor's position and the vendor's problems as much as the vendor can. Yeah, that's the kind of relationship that really has made models work here. And of course, the governance and escalation mechanism. How do you review? What happens when things don't work? Because they are not going to work initially. Where do you escalate it to? How do you review it? How do you resolve it? And money is involved, and quite often HR folks are caught in the crossfire between finance wanting ROI delivered as per contract and the vendors actually struggling to make things happen, and they're trying their very best to do things for the best of the organization. And the HR person is caught in the crossfire, and many failures happen at this point in time. And therefore, a clarity around the governance and review structure is probably what really makes this work. And I can tell you from personal experience, when Unilever implemented this, and I was responsible for Asia, Africa, and Australia had the best standards in terms of delivery, even within an in-sourced kind of a model. They had an in-sourced model. A lot of countries were going straight into the outsourced. And since Australia already had an in-source, we said they will lead the pack, and they outsourced it. And we decided on SLAs based on what was possible in the whole organization. We were not having SLAs by countries, SLAs for Unilever globally. The SLA that we contracted with the vendor happened to be 5% less than what Australia was already experiencing. And you can imagine the amount of heartburn, the amount of pushback. The entire board and the chairman of Unilever Australia were against this entire movement. But when you make such moves globally, you set standards that can be met. And slowly the SLAs keep moving up. And therefore, the initial period, it was terrible. And on top of that, when service experience was not to the satisfaction and mistakes were being made, the Australian chairman said, we are dropping out of shared services. And you can well imagine. And this, he speaks to the global CHRO and he says, Australia is off the map of shared services in Unilever. We are going back into in-sourced. Chaos, mayhem. And to manage that, and to sort of retract, and to get back things, and to make commitments as to within what time frame this will get sorted out, all of that was possible because of the governance mechanism that was in place. Otherwise, shared services in Unilever would have been history. And today, Australia is probably the most vocal proponent of shared services. And the reason as to why Unilever renewed its contract with its service provider for an additional period of 5 years now, this is in the second stage, is thanks to Australia saying this has really made a big difference for us. And I'm just thinking back, if that chaotic moment had not been managed, and thanks to the governance and the review process that we had, this would have been a story of what had been. What are the positives that organizations are experiencing? Yeah, people who have gone, what are the big positives? Clearly cost down, yeah, reduction in cost has been an experience. HRBPs have been able to focus on the business priorities. Yeah, that's a positive, a lot of people talk about. Data quality. Clearly, those who have gone through the journey after a period of time, 18 to 24 months, data quality is no longer a complaint. They have been able to manage that exceptionally well. And in terms of reducing recruitment lead time, big positive for a lot of organizations, that actually the lead time that it takes come down. Help desk, they're saying, made a big difference. That having a help desk, having people answer queries and providing information, uniformity across the board, same experience, whether you're in Gurgaon or in Goa, whether you're in Calcutta or in Cochin, yeah, whether you're in a factory or in the field, yeah, the uniform experience has helped as well. Challenges have been plenty. The positives have not come easily. In spite of the enablers, there continues to be challenges that organizations are bogged down with. And what are the kind of challenges that companies are facing here? Companies still ask and demand for on-site coordinators. Even though they outsource things, they say, can you please provide me a coordinator who will be around in this floor, and if I need him or her, I'll call. It's a big challenge for vendors. Yeah? And that's a real, in terms of people step in and do that because they want to ensure that initial teething troubles are taken care of. But unfortunately, the initial teething period seems to last on and on and on. And once they get used to this, they want that person always there. The not invented here syndrome. Oh, don't tell me what worked elsewhere. I know what works in my organization, and let's do it here afresh. So people unwillingness to accept what is worked elsewhere is also a big pushback in terms of improving the game and getting to some state-of-the-art processes. For a shared service to work well, there is a lot of two-way traffic. SLAs are not just one way. If you don't get the right input, you can't provide the right services on time. And while people are demanding in terms of what is delivered, often they are not disciplined in terms of adhering to what they are supposed to provide you. And this continues to be a big challenge. And it is not just from HR, it's from different functions, it's across different locations, it's from different levels. And that continues to be a big challenge in these companies. When you have multiple vendors and when you have multiple stakeholders, divergent thinking is something that one must expect. But if you are not able to manage that, the seamless provision of service takes a hit. And that is something that companies are experiencing, especially when you have multiple vendors. Because at the end of the day, things have to work in tandem. RPO and lifecycle management. Where do you integrate onboarding? How does it seamlessly pass on data and information to the employee life cycle? And if it's managed one in-house and one outside, or two separate vendors doing this, you have a big issue. So when you have multiple stakeholders and multiple service providers, the divergence in thinking seems to be a problem. Investment does not stop with the first tranche of investment. Quite often the business case presents itself saying that, yeah, this is going to cost us X amount of rupees, and then there's a sign off, and then there is a commitment in terms of what's the ROI going to be. The real truth of the matter is investment does not stop with the first tranche. One needs to continuously invest if you are really wanting your business case to be served. If, for example, you're talking of experience for the employee, it's not going to, what technology you invest in today, what process improvement you do today is not enough. You've got to continuously keep doing it. There's going to be demand for more and more investments. And therefore, let us not hide behind this cloak saying that this is the investment and that's it, because the organization gets into a lull thing saying that we have invested so much and no more. It is far better to say we need to be prepared for continuous investment. Just like you pay increments every year, the cost of labor is keeping moving up, inflation is there is certain to be cost escalations. And with investments, more so, because the state of the art as it keeps coming in, you need to be prepared for it. Today companies are saying, technology is fine, but we want to have mobile applications. More investment. You're saying, I really want more intuitive interface for my employees. More investment. Yeah? So those are the kind of things that's attracting talent for shared services. Shared services is definitely not the top of the pops when it comes to top talent. And especially if you go to the HRB schools and you say, I want to attract talent for shared services, it will probably be day 3. They're not really interested in being day 1 or day 0. And therefore, how do you attract talent into this place? It's a big challenge. Attrition. People coming here are looking to either go and study more or look to move into more fancier HR roles. So the attrition is something that is constant and it's a big problem. And the HR, in-house HR people, willingness to let go continues to be a problem for some companies to really go the full hog as far as shared service is concerned. And the constant review, the too frequent reviews and the nitty-gritty reviews are a problem. And this again is where the governance structure is not clear, is where you have these challenges. What's been the highlights? Amongst these companies that I've visited, there are some which really stand out as significant success stories. I'm just sharing some of these. And some of them have been shared here yesterday because some of the companies I studied have also made presentations here. And it's not as if it's rocket science, but it's about the excellence with which these have been achieved. If you look at continuous improvement, people who have taken the approaches of Six Sigma and Lean, like they would do it in a manufacturing shop floor, have really met with phenomenal improvements. And improvements which are clearly shifting the needle. And breaking down processes, recreating processes, reinventing processes, and automating things, and actually changing policies. Some of these organizations have actually revisited their HR policies, because when they have done it through HR shared services, the amount of feedback that they're getting is making their eyes open. And they're able to realize the need for changing policies. And to my mind, that's a big value add from HR shared services into the overall HR function. Reduction in recruitment lead time. And we're not talking of small numbers. What used to be more in the 80 days range, coming down to in the 50 days range kind of a thing. Yeah, and I'm not talking of the easiest of recruitment, the toughest of recruitment, the most niche of recruitment. If that's the kind of reduction that one is able to, big happiness and joy for those organizations which used to carry this as long pending position filling vacancies. Paperless decision support. And we hear about this all the time, but the reality is paper continues to move. And when approvals happen, continues to take place with paper. And it was really wonderful to see some organizations which have completely done away with paper after the first set of papers received when an employee comes in. The employee comes in, there are some forms to be filled out, some things to be signed off, some certificates to be verified. The whole thing is digitized, and after that, rest of the employee life cycle, not a single paper moving up or down. And the digital screen ensures that they have access to what they need to see, and whatever is digitally done is immediately made available to every part of the organization. And in fact, the personal file is opened only at the time of exit if they want to sort of take copies of some things that have happened during the life cycle and put it into the file. Otherwise, the personal files are managed by an outsourced vendor who has